Everybody, welcome back to the channel, Monday Night Live. We made it. Welcome to the channel. Last week went really well, guys. We did a question and answer session, and we went for just over an hour. You guys had some dynamite freaking questions. You made it easy for us. Today, I've got Adon, and we can talk a little bit about being an entrepreneur and getting into real estate. But really, the way this works for us is if you guys ask questions in the comments, it gives us a chance to give you the value that you're looking for.
Following up to the lending side of things. So if I came to you and say, hey, look, I'm thinking of doing this rehab. It's probably going to be 75 to purchase and 50 to fix. What are you expecting from me? And let's just say you don't know me. What do I have to bring to the table to show you I have a deal, or potentially I might not have a deal, and tell me why, you know?
Yeah. So how do you present your deal to a private money lender or a
Correct.
hard money lender?
Yep.
Well, number one, I would suggest that you have it under contract. That's a good start so that they know what you're paying for it. And then number two, obviously you'd need to provide comps, or at least be able to talk about them reasonably well. But what I like to present when I'm asking for money is, here's the subject property. I have it under contract for this amount. I'm going to put this amount in it in the renovations, and I'm looking for a loan for X. So it might look like this. I'm buying it for 100,000. I'm going to spend 50 to fix it. After it's finished and fixed up, it's worth $300,000. So, Mr. Lender, I'm looking to borrow $150,000 from you, but that's 50% of the LTV, right?
Okay.
And if they're not comfortable with that, or they give me pushback, they'll have their own criteria. So if you came to me and I didn't know you, I'd want you to have skin in the game, and I'd say, look, you're buying it for $100,000. I'll lend you $80,000. You bring $20,000 to the table, and then we'll do the same thing with the renovation. I'll also lend you 80% of the $50,000 renovation, but I want to see you have skin in the game.
Okay.
And then if you don't have the skin to put in the game, you'll know that you can get 80% of the money from me, and you can go out and find your brother, your uncle, your mother, a friend, someone from the YouTube community who will come in and provide that other piece. There's the other group, Pace Mortgage Group calls it Gator Lending.
Yeah.
We just call it partnering, right? Like, so I don't think that it's ever a problem to get the money on a great deal. Like I say that all the time, right? The money's not the hardest part. It's not the most important part. The hardest part's getting a great deal and then presenting it to people in a way that it makes sense. But in our example, it would make sense for someone to give you all of the money. $150,000 on a $300,000 all-in investment, especially if they can do it over time and stay safe with it. And then if you mess up and they take the property back, I mean, you went out and found something at 50 cents on the dollar after renovations. That's pretty phenomenal.
So what's a step that you would take to protect yourself as the lender?
Yeah, private lender, I would want to do one of two things. So in several situations, we like to step into the shoes of the person that we're going to be the hard money partner for, or the private money partner with, and we will take ownership of the property. But we're set up to do that, right? Like, so I'm already buying and selling. In Florida, we've got land trusts all over the place. In Puerto Rico, we've got a Series LLC. The other way, the more common way, that's probably the easier way for everybody, is just put yourself in a first mortgage position. So just make sure you have a good first mortgage.
They don't have any liens or anything.
Yeah. So you're the very first people that get paid should anything go wrong and you have to foreclose. No construction liens are ahead of you. No other mortgages are ahead of you. You're in such a good position with that first mortgage position that protects you mightily. The other thing that I would do to protect myself is I would get to know the person that I'm going to give money to. Going back to the two examples I gave earlier, I knew Eduardo Joy for quite a while before I lent him money. I really liked him. I saw what he was doing with other projects, and you know, we had several conversations. So when he came to us, it was like, yeah, I want to be in business with you. I'm going to do this deal with you. And then I didn't know Jerry as well, but I was able to see who Jerry was. I'd heard who he was. I had met him a couple times. I felt like, you're a pretty good bet, right? Like I have a reasonable expectation that you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
No, and it's not only that. He's putting his reputation on the line, because if he fucks up, It's going to be everywhere. It's
If,
going to show
he,
up somewhere.
If he
on
doesn't
YouTube
pay
or-
somebody back,
yeah,
and I'm not saying me,
yeah,
but if he doesn't pay somebody back, think about how bad that is for him.
of course.
He has a stellar reputation, and
Yes.
has deserved it, and he has earned it. He's not going to fail you, right? So that same thing with Eduardo Joy. He's got a stellar reputation. He's a very good guy. People know him as a good guy. It would be devastating for him not to pay me back, right? Like that. I would not expect it, and it would hurt him. So I don't expect it in that way either. It's just you can learn a lot from getting to know somebody.
So let's take it all the way back to your first deal. Is that something you did in your first deal? Did you obviously you borrowed the money from your wife? And
yeah,
everybody
on
else
my
that came
very
in?
first deal that I ever bought, we found a wholesaler. We contracted with the wholesaler, and there was a private money lender that they brought to the table and introduced me to. And I borrowed the money from the private lender, and it was expensive. It was like 5 points and 15%. It was an expensive loan
back then.
This is the mid 90s, and this is before interest rates really went. Interest rates were where they are now, like 8 or 9%.
Yeah.
And so I was borrowing hard money at like 5 points and 15%. And I paid that guy back, and then he did another one with me. I think, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure his name was Arthur Menken, and he was a old guy who'd been in real estate, and he was lending money to other real estate investors, kind of like I'm doing now. He was like 80 or so, and I borrowed money from him for several years, and then I'm pretty sure he must be dead now, because he had to be 80 or 85.
He's gonna show up on the YouTube channel.
Oh my God, yeah, no kidding. But yeah, so that was the first guy, and then the next lender that I got his name was Paul Williamson, and we've done 50 deals together.
And is that what Arthur did? He saw the deal. He said, it's potential. He just put it on under his company name. Make sure he.
Yeah, that company that I bought that first deal from, they were called RealNet. And they were wholesalers, and they would contract and then sell to real estate investors. And they had built the relationship with the hard money lender, and they were putting all of the pieces together.
Wow.
They had a really good business.
Yeah.
And I eventually went to work for them, and that's how I did several of my first few deals. And I was with them for a while, watching them do it, learning the business. And then I went out on my own, and they had a great business though. Their business model was, they would find a great deal, find a real estate investor. They had relationships with hard money lenders. And then once I, as the real estate investor, if I was outside of RealNet, finished the renovations and was ready to sell it again, they had another branch of realtors that would then sell those properties. And that's where I went to work for them. I went in on the other side, and I was actually selling the end product while I was also being a real estate investor. Put food on the table, I had to do something, right? And so I'm selling these other real estate investors properties on the back end. And it was a really great business model.
And have you ever had to default on anybody?
Yeah, we've had to take a couple of properties back.
How hard is that process?
Going through the full foreclosure process can be challenging. I think having now done it enough, we don't see it as that big of a problem, right? Like, so
you have to go through foreclosure even if they already put the house under the company name?
No, so
you avoid that completely.
In those cases, if I'm the owner of the property and then I'm doing back like a lease option back, then I can't remember one of those ever going poorly. But if it did, I would just take it back and then. Well, that's not true. So we had a lease option where we sold a property on a lease option in Fajardo here, and the guy lived in it for a couple of years and made his payments to us. He inherited another property, and he basically just handed us the keys back. So that was like the easiest thing ever, because he was like, hey, I got this other house. I'm sorry, I'm not going to complete the purchase with you guys.
Yeah.
Here's your keys. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
And he actually has done work with us, and we have a good relationship with him. And now we're selling that house on to someone else, and we're going to do a similar lease option thing. So that kind of thing does happen here and there.
So in that time period, all that money that you collected, is that something you got to give back, or is that something
it was
you know
rent.
he defaulted? He can't
He
pay.
gave us
He gives
gave
us back.
us some money down for an option for the option contract,
Okay,
and then he paid us rent monthly.
and that rent does not go towards the option,
In this case, it did not.
but that could be something worked into a contract.
I mean, yes.
Okay,
And so the way that we would do that, and we could do a whole deep dive video on lease option contracts
Yeah.
and stuff. But the way that I would set it up, and the way that I'm setting it up currently, is I'm going to get some option money, and that's for the right to purchase it at a certain price for a period of time. And then there's a rent. And so I tell the guy who's got the option, here's what your rent is, $900 a month. If you give me $1,000 a month, we'll take $100 a month off of the purchase. You give me $2,000 a month, and we'll take $1,100 a month off of the purchase. Right?
so it's almost like seller financing. It is seller.
Yeah, there's
finance
some
in a way.
It is a form of seller financing, the lease option. I like that. I like to sell properties like that, and we've been very successful. And that way we've had lots of success with that, and we're able to sell to people that wouldn't qualify or don't have the cash, right? Like so.